Hey everybody, Jeff Munn, Creating Extraordinary Futures. This is my weekly subscriber video. And I find myself going through a bit of a transition. So at some point, I am going to ask you to decide whether or not to continue on with me, because I think my email list is going to change. It's been, basically it's been anyone who wants to follow me can follow me. And of course that will continue to be the case, but I'm going to go through this shift toward founders. I am called to them. I'm called to that mentality. And what I've been exploring is how is it that founders get more and more out of the energy that they bring to that thing that they're wanting to create and bring into the world. And I've created a 2x2 matrix around what I see as the potential ways that we can look at self-development, leadership development, particularly in the context of the founder journey. And I'm going to try to explain that. Really, this is the first time on video that I'm trying to do this, so it may not work perfectly, but I hope you'll be patient with me. And if it resonates with you, then please continue to follow, because I think we're all founders, we're all creators, and that's what this is pointing to. So I've created this 2x2 matrix, right? And the bottom axis, I call it dissolving identity, and the vertical axis I call creating identity. And so the lower left-hand corner, where we are neither creating nor dissolving identity, this is, the vast majority of people are here because they don't even realize there is this thing called identity, that when we come from it, it has a huge impact of what we can create in the world, and therefore the most leveraged point in that creation is actually to question that identity and recognize that identity is not static. It is not stagnant. It is something that is in flux all the time. And so I call that corner execution, because it really comes from this place of the world is outside of us. We do not have any impact on it. And therefore, the way that we are as effective as we can be in the world is we just do the things that we see to do as effectively as we can. When we're growing a company, we hire people who are great at project planning. They're great at technical skill sets. They're great engineers or coders, or whatever that skill set that we need happens to be. Then when we move up, because I think the thing that we're more likely to see early is, my attitude has an impact on things. If I think about things more positively, if I can convince myself that I am capable, I have this leverage that's available to me, and that can have an impact. And so I call that affirmation. What I'm pointing to there is to things like positive thinking, literal affirmations, the secret, this idea that if we think about a thing enough, it will influence us in manifesting that thing in the world. Or from the perspective of identity, if we think about ourselves in a particular way, that can in and of itself influence and help create how we're showing up in the world. And I think there's some strong leverage there. I think people who have done this, this is a guess, but you can double your results if you're about positive thinking and affirmations and seeing what you want and visualizing yourself having it. All those things can be incredibly powerful. Now, and so that's along the axis that I call creating identity. So you haven't really explored the dissolving identity phase yet, and that comes next. but you see that how you show up in the world actually impacts the results you get. And that's a big insight. So the next thing, which is along the dissolving identity axis, I call it realization. And so this is reflective of some of the work that I've done in the three principles space with folks like Jack Pransky and Michael Neal. It certainly relates to my Buddhist teacher, Peter Fenner, from years ago. And so what is that pointing to? The realization of what? So part of it is seeing that our experience of the world is 100% internal 100% of the time. And therefore, anything that we're experiencing in the world, we are experiencing inside of us. And it changes. It changes from moment to moment, not just from day to day or year to year, but literally from moment to moment. You may be in a fight with someone, you may be in a mood, and see someone in a particular way, and 5 minutes later, you may realize, oh, I misunderstood that, or, oh, I understand where they're coming from, and you see them totally differently, and you are creating that. It's just that most of the time we're unconscious of it. It looks so real. The space, if you close your eyes, the space inside your head where stuff appears doesn't seem that real. It seems very amorphous, but the stuff out there looks really solid. So we tend to think of it as solid. We tend to think of ourselves as solid, but it's really just the history of ourselves that we're coming up with in the moment, the idea that we're an introvert or that we don't manage our time well. These are things that come up as thoughts, and then they may dissipate and they may change. And the truth is, sometimes we're one thing, sometimes we're another. We're never really solid. And so when we see that notion of identity as something solid, fixed, unchanged, begins to dissolve. So when I talk about the realization, the dissolving of identity, it's like, when I really look, all I can really say is that there is something looking through my eyes, experiencing life at this point in space and time. And I can't really say a lot about that. So that's the realization quadrant. That's the idea that we don't have a fixed identity. So I would say that people who have had that realization, it frees them up. And sometimes it frees them up to be called to create more. It's like, oh, wow, I had this idea that I had to prove myself, to prove that I was enough, to prove that I had made it. And I realize I'm just making all that up. So I don't have that heaviness anymore. So I can do anything. I can create anything. I can declare anything. And sometimes, so that would say, I'd say it's a factor of 2 to 3 times what you could get just from a pure execution standpoint. And sometimes it's like, oh, wow, I'm good. I don't actually need to create anything. And that's 100% okay. But I want, the potential downside of the realization path, if you're coming to it from the perspective of, oh, I'm somehow going to use this realization as a way to create more in the world, is that sometimes it doesn't have that impact, at least for a while. And then I would say most people, most of the time, come back to, oh, wow, what do I want to create? Just because it'd really be fun. Now, where I think, so you've got that being 2 to 3x or 0. You've got the affirmation path being 2x. Now, where I think the exponential power of all this comes in, if you try the affirmation path without having had the realization, you get about 2x. But if you've had the realization that you are literally nothing, that your sense of identity is 100% created and it's 100% not solid, and that creation has mostly been unconscious for you, if you really work on dissolving and letting go of that and starting from zero, then you can consciously create your identity as anything you want to be. You can do this from an ego perspective if you want to, although if you've really seen the realization path, you realize that ego isn't, that ego doesn't have nearly the same hold, because the ego is all about making you feel good enough. Or you might be called, the silence that comes in the realization path opens up so much more in the way of possibilities. I know for me, as I've built my coaching practice, it's one after another of these, oh wait, there's more available here. Oh wait, if I can come from this place, there's more available. Oh wait, maybe I need to create myself as this. Maybe I want to create myself as this. Maybe I want to declare this into existence. And there is such power here that I would say this is the 10x path. This path of what I call transformation. So there's execution, affirmation, realization, transformation. Transformation is this continual, conscious self-creating of yourself as anything you want to be. That is what is available to you on this path. And so I think it's particularly effective for founders, because founders have already declared to the world that they have a better idea. They have already resisted the idea that I am going to be a cog in a wheel. I'm going to be a box in a corporate org chart. They've already created themselves as something different from that. And they've done that more from an external perspective than an internal perspective. But when they see the internal, what is available to them internally, the power is immense. And so if that journey is appealing to you, by all means, continue to pay attention to what I'm putting out. The vast majority of it's going to be free, and I welcome your coming along on this journey with me. And if what you're seeing at this point is, execution looks like the way it's at, where it's at, that's totally fine. But you're probably not going to get a lot out of what I'm posting from here on out. So with that, have fun experimenting with these different ideas. Take care. I'll see you next week. Thanks.